I'm here with Lori, an experienced developer, and I'm so excited to talk to her. You have asked me so many questions about women in tech, how to get into the industry, and for some role models. So yeah, now I'm going to get started. So Lori, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for asking me.
You've been in tech for quite a while. Can you tell us how you get started and how your career has evolved?
Sure. So when I was in high school, we had typewriters. They were electric, but they were still typewriters, right? They weren't computers. And so I didn't know I had an aptitude. We also moved around a lot when I was a kid. So I didn't do very well in math class because I was constantly moving, and so I didn't actually know that I had an aptitude for it. Okay, so my family didn't have much money, and my grandmother suggested I join the Navy instead of going to college. And this was at a time, probably about 5 or 6 years after Vietnam, and it was a career option, but it wasn't a popular career option for women, although they were beginning to accept more women. So I took her up on her advice. I joined the Navy, and I went in without knowing what to do. And this was right about the time of Star Wars, the movie Star Wars. They took us on a tour of the ship, and when I got to the computer department, there were a lot of lights flashing and blinking and a lot of electronic equipment, and I thought, Star Wars, this is where I want to work. And so I did, and it turns out I can do it pretty well, and that was the beginning. After I got out of the Navy, I went to college and got my engineering degree, and have been in tech ever since.
Okay. Can you tell us what kind of positions you've had in the tech industry?
Sure. Okay. So in the Navy, I fixed computers. So we had big missile system computers, and I was responsible for maintaining them and doing some debugging, troubleshooting of them. But they were quite big and connected together with great big cables. It wasn't like an Ethernet now or Wi-Fi. And so I got to start in technology. So I went into electrical engineering, never built a circuit, went right into design automation software development. I worked for Western Digital, and they built chips and hard drives. And I helped with the design automation bit. They did all their software design in software, actually, before they built the chips and the hard drives. So I worked there for a couple of years, and then went into programming full-time in an business application environment for fixed assets, general ledger, accounts payable, that kind of thing, customer management. Let's see, that lasted quite a few years, and then I took a trip out of technology for a while, did some event planning because I got to travel internationally, as we know since we're in Thailand. I love to travel. So I did that for a while, and then went back into tech at the height, and I worked for Cisco for many years after that.
Okay. And now you no longer work for Cisco because you were location independent.
Yes.
So can you describe what you do now?
Yeah, so now I currently am migrating an application that I've been working on for about the last 10 years off and on with my husband. It's a small project management simulation software that's used in classroom training. It's with a company called Simulation Powered Learning in Minneapolis. I met the man who owns the company in my sophomore master's engineering program. And I'm working and supporting that software. So now we wrote it in Silverlight about 5 years ago, which was not the best option for mobile. It became pretty clear that that was a dead end, and now I'm migrating it to React. And I started with Hacker Paradise about 18 months ago, started it, and I have my first alpha test tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Eek.
Wow, that sounds like such rich experience in the tech industry. Can you touch on how tech industry has changed since you first started?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously things have gotten a lot smaller. The computers I worked on in the Navy don't look anything like what they look like now. There are a lot more women in tech now. I think it seems a more viable career path. It seems more well defined, I think, than it used to be. I mean, what else has changed? I mean, it's just been such a big leap from the 70s and 80s. The internet has changed everything. I mean, the internet allows us to work here. Whereas when I first started, it was an office, and all the computers were in a big room, and you know, you had the special keys to get in there, and you couldn't mess anything up. And now we can work in the heat without worrying about our computers burning out. So
Yeah.
So the industry, the actual computers themselves have changed, and I
Yeah.
think the people who work on it, well, I don't know how much we've changed. It's definitely more diverse, but it's not as diverse as it could be, unfortunately.
Yeah, thanks for that input. And this is a question from one of the members from my Facebook group. She asked, how do you keep up with the constant changes in tech?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always seen myself, I mean, I think it's tech people, we fit into different categories, right? We don't all do the same things as well. For me, I like to be the person that blazes a path through the forest that hasn't been cut down yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So I embrace new technology. If it's out there and I can learn it, then I do. So it's hard for me to know where your Facebook group member fits into that. You know, there are some people that like to maintain the trail once it's been cut, and I think it's really good to know which part of the spectrum you fall into. Are you a trailblazer? Do you like to maintain the software after it's been developed? Would you rather test it? So it's hard for me to know, but I would say to understand how you like to learn things. Sometimes you can go into meetup groups, you can go to talks, you can do online courses. There's a number of ways to do it, but I think the best thing is to understand how you absorb information and where you're comfortable on that spectrum of being in the forefront of technology or being able to absorb it from people who were already there before you. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that is really useful because I think being in the tech industry, you feel the constant pressure of like keeping up. But like you said, there's so much demand for people to maintain code.
Yes.
And there's a lot of legacy systems out
Yes.
there that still needs, people's attention.
That's right.
And I think it's comforting to know that if maybe it gets too much at some point to keep up with the new stuff, you could always maybe be a maintainer for a little bit,
That's
and
right.
when you have time, you can go and do the new thing again.
Yes.
So I think that's very, very valuable input.
It's important not to let people get to you. There's a lot of judgment out there, and a lot of people have a lot of strong ideas and opinions about what the right framework is to learn and what the right language is to learn. But I would suggest learn how to program. So how you say, I need to go to the store in one language, you can figure it out by Googling in another language, right? And you can still get to the store. So, but understand that if I'm out of something, I need to go to the store. That's the most important thing.
All right, thanks for that. And what are your favorite things about this career, and what are your biggest challenges?
Well, I mean, there's nothing like the feeling when I've been working very hard on a programming problem and I solve it. I feel very successful at that, and I get a lot of self-confidence from that. My favorite part is that I can work alone. I have a lot of, in my particular position, it's not in every programming position, but I have a lot of leeway to do what I want to do with the application because I'm the lead developer. Not every job is like that, but just the whole idea of programming is very, that's my favorite part of it, yeah. And doing it at 6 a.m. when I wake up or midnight if I can't sleep, just the flexibility is good too. Well, the challenges, I mean, like anybody, it's so frustrating when you've been working on something for so long and you can't get the answer, and you just want to give up. You can't. You have to be, you have to persevere. But yeah, that's sometimes when it's not good to work alone.
Right.
You know, you have to take a break and just come back. But I want to beat my head against the wall a lot.
Yes, I think we've all been there.
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
especially when you're first learning
Yes.
and you don't really understand
Yes.
all the moving pieces. So it's
Yes.
great to know that, even you have those moments a lot, and, just that it's just a fact of being in this job.
Software is complicated, and it's easy to make very stupid mistakes. I still make them. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I will still forget an else. In fact, I did it the other day. I couldn't understand why my conditional was not working right. Well, I forgot the else.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to work that way. And I could kick myself a lot if I wanted, but you have to be patient because it's not easy what we're doing.
All right, let's talk about the big topic for women, and that's gender discrimination. So in 2017, we've had so many big stories about women being harassed and assaulted in the tech industry and the entertainment industry. So as a technical woman with so many years of experience, like, have you encountered gender discrimination? What was it like?
Yeah. Well, so like we were talking before, I mean, 2017, people are starting to speak up, but we have to remember that these incidents happened for many years, and people are finally feeling comfortable and safe enough to talk about them. So yes, throughout my career, men have always felt like they have the right to comment on our bodies, what we look like, what our weight is, perhaps what our technical skills are, and so on. I always tried to keep my head down and really focus on my work. I knew I could do the job, but it still bothered me. In the Navy, I don't think technically I was discriminated against, but definitely men had a lot of ideas about what we should and shouldn't look like. I don't know if that's changed now. It's been a long time since I was in. When I worked for, well, I probably shouldn't even name them. One of the companies I worked for, I was on an all-male team, which was pretty typical actually throughout my career. And the men there didn't feel like I had the experience to be on that team. Some of them didn't get to interview me, and so they were very annoyed that I was actually there without understanding why I was brought onto the team and what I was meant to do. So they would cut me out of business trips. I would have to plan my own. They always planned theirs together. They made comments to my boss. There were a lot of things that left me feeling very alone, and I'm sure your audience can relate to that as well. How did I get over it? Well, eventually I left the job. It was really unpleasant. And in fact, eventually I talked to the director of the organization. I ran into him later, and he apologized. He actually didn't understand how bad it was. So I would encourage people to speak up. I didn't feel safe enough. I didn't feel comfortable enough, and I felt like perhaps I would be singled out for complaining, which I'm sure many women who are coming to talk today have probably felt the same way when it happened. Like, is it me? Am I crazy? So I don't think I handled it well then. But 20 years on, and given the state of the union for the women today, probably I would say something.
Yeah.
I think it would feel safe enough now.
Yeah, definitely. Even today, like, women are singled out for whistleblowing and like being labeled as troublemakers, and basically like framed and set up to fail, and then the company can get rid of them. Yeah,
maybe had I said something, it would be easier. I mean, I'm sure it's not just me that could affect it, but I think we are somewhat responsible for saying things for the people who come after us, and so today I wouldn't take it. I would stand up. But it's, for me now, it's not an issue. I feel very much a partner with the person who owns the company, and the two developers that are subcontracted work for me, so I don't think they would ever say it, even if they thought it, which I don't think they do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really helpful. And what would you say to the women who want to get into the tech industry, but they're intimidated by this issue?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what the one thing is that's going to encourage women, but I would say, here I am 30 years back looking at my career, and I would have regretted not going in. And so try to find some spark of confidence in yourself and screw everybody else, really, because it's not their career, it's yours. Find groups of women that you can work around. There's so many now. Women who code, women develop it, girl develop it, I guess it's called. I don't know if they're in every country, but your Facebook group is probably a really good example. And then there are local meetups and local tech meetings, and even if nobody talks to you, try to persist and go, and maybe be the person that you want to meet, right? Reach out to people that you don't know. Try not to, and I did this a lot. I was so shy because I was afraid people didn't want to know me. It's not that at all. Try to get over that just a little bit, and you know, you're not fearless, but you take a leap.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
It's a career that requires some bravery, though, for sure.
Yes, yes, I agree. Okay, so thank you for sharing your thoughts on this important topic for women. So moving on, okay, jobs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there are a lot of women who want to get into development, and they're afraid that they're not going to get jobs. You know, like most postings are for senior developers because there's a shortage of people who know what they're doing.
Right.
So like when you're hiring or when you need to find someone or recommend someone to maybe another opportunity, like how do you go about that, finding those people?
Right. Well, I mean, I've done hiring both by unknown resume, just having an HR department send us resumes of people I don't know. And in addition, in Hacker Paradise, I've met a couple of people who had a few openings for some part-time things. And also in my career, it's always been about who I know. I like to know a person. I like to be comfortable with them. I like to understand their work ethic. And you can get a lot about that just by being around the person for a while. So now I don't mean to say that resumes can't get you a job. But I feel like throughout my career, my best jobs have been because I've known the person. And the people that I subcontracted to do some work with me now, I knew them as well. And I think the best advice is to find a champion. Now, how do you do that? That's a champion is someone within the company that understands what you can do, will fight for you with HR, present your resume to perhaps other hiring managers that might be in the same company. There are a number of ways to do that. My best jobs came because I volunteered on the same type of volunteer organization with the person who kept hiring me at Cisco. It was a technical type of volunteer position, so he understood what I could do technically. He understood how my brain worked. He understood how I could fit into his team. So I think volunteer positions are good. There are a number of volunteer organizations now I've noticed that refit computers for schools, for example, or things like that, where you might get corporations involved. And wouldn't it be nice if you could get in front of them in a very non-competitive way, because everybody needs volunteers. So that's one way to do it. But I would say choosing between a resume that's on a pile of resumes with everybody else and actually finding someone within a company that you want to work for that you can perhaps help them with something outside, or yeah, just find a way to get to know people. Yeah, that would be the best.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so funny that in the age of the internet and social media, it is that personal connection that matters the most.
It always has been, and I don't see that changing.
Okay. And I guess to the people, maybe like, you know, because you need to get to know people, but you also need to send their resumes. Like, do you have any advice on making their portfolio or resume stand out? Any words of wisdom?
I'm sorry to say that it's been such a long time since I've used a resume. I don't even know the proper protocol now. I mean, do you still list like, here are all the languages that I know?
Yeah, like your accomplishments, and then you link to GitHub. And,
yeah. So there are going to be keywords, right, that everybody's going to look for. I think even still people look for what can you do to help them.
Right.
So at this company, I was able to make this section of code operate 20% faster, so with numbers and with actual accomplishments. I mean, I don't think that part has changed. Yeah, because I think it's a gamble for people to bring new people on board, and they just want to understand that you can be successful in things. So,
so like demonstrate some kind of accomplishment, competency, so people feel confident in your skills.
I think so. Reading the job description and just figuring out in your history and your experience what types of things have you done that are like that thing. Maybe not exactly that thing, because as women we tend to feel like it has to be exactly that, and it doesn't. Is it something like that? You know, if they're looking for I don't know, testing, for example, and perhaps you wrote a program that you did your own testing on or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be exactly writing in jest tests or something, but you understand the process. Demonstrate that.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry I can't give it anything more exact because I haven't had a resume for a while.
Yeah,
Which
no
is
worries.
something to look forward to when you get to be 50-something years old.
Okay, so we also have women like myself who are more junior and looking to level up. Like, what advice do you have for us?
Yes. Well, I mean, do they have mentors at your company? I know a lot of companies, Cisco had a mentoring program. So I suppose it depends on the size of the company that you're in. I suppose general information or general advice would be find a person in your company that's doing what you want to do and really talk to them and understand how did they level up.
How did you level up?
How did I level up? Well, goodness, I'm not even sure one could call it leveling up. I got older. That was one thing. I was in the industry for a long time, and I knew people who knew what I could do. And so, for example, I worked for Cisco on and off for 16, 17 years, and I had a champion inside who, meanwhile, he was moving up. And so every time he needed somebody to do something that I could do, he would bring me on. I was first a full-time employee, but then went on as a contractor, and he would just bring me on, and I would leave when the project was done. And so as he was leveling up, I was leveling up.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess that's probably a unique situation, but again, it's the connections that you make and demonstrating that that's what your desire is. If you really want to do that,
Right.
let people know that's what you want to do. Don't hide it and expect them to give you the promotion because you're there.
Yeah, I guess another thing is just to be patient and have exposure to different things, and over time, then as you gain the experience, you will kind of naturally level up.
You will, but if you're eager to do it, you will notice men will let people know they want a new position, and even if they're not completely qualified for it, they will go for it. I would encourage women to do something similar within the balance of what feels comfortable for you.
Right.
Maybe a little discomfort, but not completely against your moral compass. But but I would say don't hide the fact that you want to advance. Really let people know. Let your manager know. Yeah.
Okay. And then, do you have any last thoughts that you want to share before we end this interview?
I would just say, take chances, and it's your life and it's your career, and if you want to screw it up, it's nobody's business but yours. And I would say for the most part, if you feel strongly about taking a step and other people are judging, try not to listen to their voices, listen to your own. I've done some career moves that I've gotten judged by, but here I am 30 years later, I can travel, I'm doing very well, I have a project that I love, and had I known that 30 years ago it would turn out like this, I would have listened much less to those voices.
Okay.
So, try to stay true to your own. Yeah, everybody has an opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, including me, so don't listen to me if it doesn't apply to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank
that
you,
was
Jenny.
valuable feedback, and I'm sure, all of us younger women can, look up to what you've done and learn from that.
Thank you. It didn't occur to me that I was a trailblazer at that point, but I appreciate you treating me as one, and so thank you. Good luck, everybody. Really.
Right.
Stay in tech. Stay.